Okay, I hear there's a celebration in order. It is your 100th podcast, and that's a wonderful thing. I hope there is more and many, many more, and years to come, and something even bigger comes out of it. So we will celebrate after this conversation. But I just need to know, Rob sent me this note to send you this video. And he wrote TBOTA. What's a Tabata? I'm trying to figure it out. I'm not good with crossword puzzles. I can't figure out if it's a different language. I tried to sound it out, but TBOTA, Tabata. So happy Tabata on your 100th podcast broadcasting. On a note that makes me very happy, I'm so glad that the two of you really get along so well and look forward to doing this podcast. And hopefully it reaches people who really care about what you guys have to say. It's a wonderful thing for people to get information, to release, to have a funny story, to turn around and, be thoughtful of others. And however your podcast goes, be a little crazy. So Rob asked me to do a little story about you that he might not know. So the one story I'm going to say is, when Caitlin was about 8 or 9 years old, we were coming out of a pizzeria on the main drag on Grand Avenue in Baldwin where we live. Now literally there was no parking lot, so the cars are parked in the street. And Caitlin and I don't remember if you, Caitlin, were holding the pizza box or I was. I think you were. And what happened is we were on the street corner just waiting to, cross the street or go on to the other side, the driver's side of my truck. I don't know why I would say that, but a car came fast and cruised around the corner, so close to us. And we had to back up. We were frozen, and we weren't sticking out that far, not even past whatever cars were already parked there. And you looked up at me and you said, "Daddy, my butt crack went up to a place I never knew it could reach before." So that's a story that you, Caitlin, will remember, but Rob maybe never heard. Now, on the other note, that it's a funny and happy time, Rob asked me to say something else that was maybe one of those crazy stories that I might have about myself. Well, amongst the millions and millions of stories that I have, one was that Steve Kennedy, at that time, back in the early 70s, was my best friend. And we turned around and we used to walk everywhere. 10th grade was my worst year in school because I hardly ever went. But made a deal with the postman that came, and also found out in school that every other day, if you didn't show up, a cut card would go home. So basically, I made a deal with the post guy and said, every time a cut card comes, could you hold it for me? So this way my parents didn't get it. Well, needless to say, that worked out real well, but not for education purposes. But anyway, to go back to Steve Kennedy and I, on one of our many, many journeys, we turned around and went to Adventures Inn, where I worked years later, maybe 2 more years later. And it's an amusement park in Queens, in Flushing. And it was closed, so we went into this place that was all undeveloped at the time. Now, there's not a spot to be had. But 40 years ago, undeveloped. And we're walking around, and Steve decides to make fun of this guy that's in this little teeny-weeny airport that's there, only for tiny plane, 2-person planes, maybe 4-person planes. So with that, Steve's making fun of this guy with this tiny little hat on his head. And I'm like, Steve, stop. The guy's getting mad at us, but the fence is there, and he can't get us. Steve says, screw this guy. Ha ha, what are you wearing that stupid little hat for? Well, needless to say, as we're walking feeling safe along this barren area that's all filled with debris and construction dirt, the guy comes out with a 4-wheel drive truck. The gate automatically opened, and he's coming after us, and that's it. Well, Steve and I love to get chased, so we were on the run. We ran into this deserted, land-filled, mine-filled, dirt-filled area that if we were dead, nobody would ever found us for years maybe. And he's coming after us, driving into this area with this truck, this four-wheel drive truck. Well, needless to say, when we finally got far enough away from him and he couldn't come any further, we both felt comfortable. And we get to this area where basically it's about a 20-foot high ravine, and below it is a small little